The Deadlock rumor mill continues to buzz this week with more and more conversations about the possibility of PvE coming to Deadlock. And so today I wanted to make a quick video in part because we got some really interesting new leaks that just came out today. Hey everyone, this is Connor here at Deadlocked, and I'm really excited to get into this. Like I said, there's been a lot of recent conversation just about PvE, and a lot of it is driven from just the fact that we're getting farther and farther away from the Old Gods New Blood update. We're starting to ask the question, what's next? But in any case, I think it's worth talking about PvE specifically because it does actually look more and more like this could be a thing we get in Deadlock sooner rather than later. But especially worth mentioning at the start of this video, this does represent a lot of things that I would take quite a bit with a grain of salt. Minesweeper's even said in his own post that this feels like stuff that is as the very kind of beginnings of being worked on. This does not represent anything close to a finalized product and could undergo a lot of changes before we get it to the game's live server. But the main thing that we are talking about today and why I kind of want to talk about PvE is Minesweeper has shared two images of what he claims to be the PvE map, kind of like more or less a recreation of it is what he said in his post. This kind of just looks like blocked images. I don't know if he used something to kind of render maybe an in-game image into something else like this. It's not exactly clear, but this appears to be, a different map, which raises a lot of questions immediately about Deadlock's development. I mean, this would be a really massive change for the game. I mean, we really only have the Cursed Apple, and if you count the sandbox area and the hideout as kind of other playable areas, those are really the only places you can exist in Deadlock right now. This would be a completely new addition to the game, and also would obviously signal a really significant arrival of PvE in Deadlock, something that we have talked about quite a bit on the channel. And if it feels like this PvE conversation has kind of come out of nowhere, it's a completely fair take. This isn't something we've necessarily been talking about for a long time on the channel. We have covered this recently in some videos about kind of some leaks and rumors about what could be coming to the game next. I made a video 3 days ago about like kind of 10 ideas for these changes or additions, and this was one of them. And that's in part because we've seen a lot of different rumors and kind of leaks and ideas about what PvE could look like in Deadlock, and they've really been all over the place, so I haven't really felt super confident in reporting on them. But one of the kind of baseline things we can hang our hat on is that the Hopoo Games, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, lead dev came to work at Valve in September, I think it's reported on September 2nd of 2024, to work on Deadlock. This was more than just one person. This was actually a lot of the game studio went over to work on Valve. These are the folks that brought us Risk of Rain 2, these really incredible kind of roguelike games where you do fight off waves of minions and you can upgrade throughout the round. It's a really kind of interesting starting point for the discussion on PvE because it seems very intentional that they were probably brought over to work on Deadlock for something like this. So it'll be interesting to kind of, maybe hear down the line how long they've actually been potentially working on this mode. It's a really kind of cool rabbit hole to chase down, but there's been a lot of different kinds of ideas about what PvE could look like, whether it's just fighting off waves in kind of a really traditional sense, whether it will have its kind of own, kind of flair as a game mode. It could be something that is used to kind of communicate the game's lore. This is something we've talked about in the past, like going to different locations across the Cursed Apple to interact with players, fight NPCs, things like that. It could be a way to get skins in the game, or like a way to unlock cosmetics in some kind of way, to learn the game. I mean, there's so many different avenues that a PvE mode could take and different forms it could take. I don't think there's enough on the table yet to definitively say what it will look like, but I would certainly pay attention if you're familiar with games like Risk of Rain 2. That's certainly a good starting point to look at for what PvE could look like in Deadlock, based on the fact that, again, that entire, or at least a good chunk of that development team came over to Valve in September of 2024. And really the second piece of news to break down here is just really the idea that we could be getting a new map in Deadlock. This is, to me, a significant idea because Street Brawl currently uses the standard Cursed Apple, and part of me thought, thinking through like a League of Legends lens, for example, that we wouldn't really get that many maps in Deadlock, maybe even any maps. But if we're already potentially getting a new map for PvE mode and we're in this stage of the game's development, it really does kind of open my eyes to the possibilities of what this game could be. I mean, we've talked in the past about escort game mode rumors and all these different things that could signal this to really be a pretty wide scope game when you think about it. And so it really, I think for a long time I had probably pigeonholed myself into thinking of this game as just a strict MOBA, just like a League of Legends or a Dota. But it's news like this and early developments like this that really do get me excited for what Deadlock could be, and partially because there is a lot of unknown there. And it is cool to see this go through a developer like Valve, who are willing to kind of take their time, take the wide swings, really go for the kind of, I don't know, kind of go for it all in a lot of ways here with Deadlock. So in any case, I'll quit yapping. Very exciting news though, nonetheless. Potential PvE, new maps, a lot of new stuff coming to Deadlock. I'll continue to keep you all updated here. There have been a lot of kind of leaks, rumors, discussions recently, but I also, I still expect some like matchmaking patches, some like kind of structural patches to be coming to the game pretty soon, if a lot of this stuff is to be true. So in any case, thank you all so much for tuning in. From RS to yours, we'll see you all next time here at Dead Unlocked.